Hello my friends, it's the Game Boy Geek here. My mission is breaking down barriers and growing relationships through board games. I find myself playing with a lot of people who haven't really played a lot of board games in their life. Maybe they've only played Monopoly or Uno, chess and things like that. Maybe some of them have played some of the more recent mass market hits like Exploding Kittens or Cards Against Humanity and things like that. But as I play these games with them, they are just awed that there's this underground world about these board games and how many new ones have come out every year, and they like to see what else is out there and what else they can play, and they're often asking me for recommendations of what else they could play or try, and I typically end up just buying them a bunch of these games and sending them to them or bringing them to them. And so I thought maybe I'll make a list of a lot of these games that I think are the best ones for people to start a new collection with if you're new to the hobby. So this video is mainly for people that are just starting to get their feet wet, they're dipping their toes in the board game water, and they want to know what else is out there. Where should they start? So I have basically put together a list of the top 15 board games to start a collection with, and I tried to make these games all sorts of different types of games and cross sections of different genres within the board game hobby. So without further ado, here we go. Now, most everyone is familiar with rolling dice. And, back in the day, a very popular game, Yahtzee, had come out. I played it a lot as a kid, and most people have either played this game or at least have heard of it. And so this is called the roll and write genre, which has really exploded in the last 2 years in the board game hobby. And so I wanted to make sure to get one of these types of games on here. And the first one that I've placed on this list is called Qwixx. Now, the reason why it's on this list is because I think it's the most easiest to get into, the easiest to teach, and the easiest to teach others once you're kind of doing the same thing of getting new people into the hobby. And it's fun, and it adds interesting choices, but it's not too overwhelming. Now in Qwixx, you're going to be rolling dice, and not only the player that's rolling the dice will be able to take a turn and do things with them, but everyone else does too, and so everyone is doing something on their turn. What you're trying to do is cross off these different colored blocks. You're trying to add sums of numbers of different colors and trying to figure out what is the best one for you to take. But the twist is once you've crossed off an area, you can never go backwards, meaning left. You always have to go forward. So the tough decisions are, when do you go forward? How far forward do you go? And you're trying to get as many as you can for each color, because the more you get, the more points each one of those is. And it's just a fun, light, easy dice rolling game that you can play anywhere. It has a sort of normal version, which is a travel version, and they also have a deluxe version, which I highly recommend. Comes with dry erase markers. It's a lot bigger. It has a double-sided board with different challenges as well. So Qwixx is a great dice rolling game to start with. Well, most everyone has either played chess or heard of chess. And this next game is a two-player only abstract strategy game, but it is so simple. Essentially, it's like Connect Four or tic-tac-toe. You're simply just trying to get four in a row, a diagonal up, down, or left, right, or trying to get four sort of in a box. Or you're forcing your player not to be able to play, but it's very simple. All you're doing is simply taking one of the spots, placing your token there, and then the next player has to put their piece on one of the spots that has one of those two things in common, like a sun or a bird or a plant or a banner or a tree. And it's very easy because you just place something and you go and you have a few choices. But the cool thing about this game is even though it's super simple, you're forced to kind of think 2, 3, 4 turns ahead, kind of like you do in chess, but it's very condensed, it's very quick. It takes 10 minutes or less to play. Usually you'll play this game multiple times in a row. It fits in a purse or in a pocket. It's very easily, you can play it while you're waiting for dinner at a restaurant. So I want to put Naya on this sort of for this abstract strategy side, but it's very simple and it's not intimidating at all. Very quick, and it's from my favorite designer, Bruno Cathala, and that is Naya. The next one also has a lot to do with dice, and this is called Las Vegas. This is a very fun game where you're rolling dice and trying to take over the majority of different casinos, and you'll be taking over those majorities depending on which dice you choose to place. And as you roll dice, you're placing one type of die, but you're putting all of them. So if I rolled like 4 threes, I put all those threes on the casino that says 3. And then it's the next player's turn, and things go round and round. And you're trying to fight with other players, trying to place dice so you have the most, because whoever has the most at the end gets the most money from that casino. So it's sort of like you're fighting over these different casinos, but the fun part is if there's a tie, those two players don't get anything and the next lowest one gets it. And it makes for just hilarious moments where someone swoops in with one single die and gets a big payday and they're laughing, and this game is just fun. It's light, but there's still a decent amount of things to think about, good choices, and it's just a blast. I've never seen this knock over well. It might just look like, hey, I'm just rolling dice, what fun is this? No, trust me. You roll these dice, you have great choices. The choices get harder and harder as the game goes on. And you play multiple rounds, it takes about 30 minutes to play, maybe 35. It's easy to teach, fun to play, and it's one of the first ones I pull out with a group, and it can play, I believe, up to a decent amount of players, 5 players. So that is Las Vegas. This next one is actually a remake of a 1979 game called Stop Thief. Back then, that game was just raging because it had this new technology of using this electronic device to find the thief, and everyone's trying to find the thief. The thief is moving around the board and everyone is trying to figure out where they are, because the thief is not literally on the board. It's moving in a way that you're trying to figure out where they are. Did they go through a window? Did they go through a door? And you're getting these different sounds so you can hear where they're going, but you don't know exactly where they are, and you're trying to deduce where they are, catch them, and get money. Now, it's been redone recently by a great company called Restoration Games, and they made this game beautiful, and they redid a lot of the mechanisms. And the reason why it's on this list is because it's a great family game. It's easy to teach. It uses sort of more modern technology. It has an app that helps you try to find the thief. But there's many ways to play this game. You could play it competitively against everyone else, and sort of the game itself is the thief running around. Or you could play purely cooperative, where everyone is working together to try to get the thief. And there's another version where one player actually is the thief moving in a hidden manner and everyone else is trying to chase them. So because it's so versatile and it's such an easy, streamlined game, this is called a hidden movement game. And this is the the easiest to teach and the most streamlined version of this, which is why it's on this list. And there's so many different ways to play the game. You can pretty much play this in any situation. Stop Thief, a great family game to start with. Now this next one I have a special place in my heart for, because many years ago, this is the game that got me back into this big board gaming hobby, because I played games all the time as a kid, but I stopped when I was in college and things like that, and this game brought me back. It's called Forbidden Island. This is a purely cooperative game where you're working together to try to get 4 treasures off this sinking island and get onto the helicopter and get out alive. And each player has certain special things they can do. They can fix sinking tiles better, they can move differently, they can pass cards easily, they can fly around the map easily. So everyone's sort of a special person that is going to help you in a different way. And you're going around and fixing tiles and trying to fly around and get these different things and share cards. And it's a great introduction to cooperative games, which is another very popular aspect of today's board gaming market. And this is one of my favorites to start with. It would have been much higher up on this list, but it does have a little bit more going on than some of these other games, so it might be a little bit more difficult for new people to figure out. But man, if you take the time, you can watch my videos, my reviews about this below, and you can learn it quicker. But this is just such a fun game. It's a beautiful game. It reminded me of an old computer game called Myst that was just so beautiful. Great cooperative game to start with, Forbidden Island.
Number 10.
Okay, so now we're in the top 10 here. This is one of my favorite party games, and it's called Wits and Wagers, and the new version that's out today is called Vegas. You can get this in mass market stores and stuff. And Wits and Wagers is great. It takes trivia, which I don't know a lot of people that like it, but puts it in such a fun light where you don't have to know the answer to the question. You just need to bet on who you think is closest. Like, how many steps are there in the Empire State Building? Well, no one's going to know that. That's the point. But everyone's guessing, and you're ranking everyone's guess from lowest to highest, and you're trying to bet on the one that's the closest without going over, kind of like the Price is Right. And as the rounds go on, you get more and more chips as you win, and you can bet those and try to win those. And it's just a really fun game. It's just 7 questions long. This is one that you're going to play over and over again, multiple times in a row. And the cool thing about this is it's better with 4 or more players. But I've played this with up to 100 people, where big tables of 10 people were one team working together. So you could play this with a humongous group. You could do it almost like a game show style, but you could play it down as little as 4 players, and it's just really fun. It's one of the best trivia games I've ever played. And even if you don't like trivia games, check this one out, Wits and Wagers Vegas.
Number 9.
All right, now this next one is also a very sort of fun party-ish style game or a family game. And it plays really well with all player counts from 3 all the way up to 8. It's called Camel Up. Now in this game, there's a bunch of camels and they are racing around the board, and no one person owns these camels, but you're going to be influencing these camels, how they move, and you're going to be trying to bet on which ones are going to be winning different legs of the race, and then which one's going to come in first and last. So it's very simple. You've got a few actions. You can roll dice to make camels move, and the way they move is when they stack on each other. It's interesting because the camels, if you have camels stacked on one another, when that camel moves below, it takes all the camels that's on top of it with it. And all sorts of really strange, crazy things will happen. You'll have a camel that's in last place, nobody's betting on it, and just because of different things that happen, this camel will end up winning the game, and it's just nuts. And people are betting on it and yelling and hollering and screaming, and it's just really, really fun. Camel Up is a fantastic sort of family betting prediction style game that is a ton of fun, and it plays really great all the way up to 8 players.
Number 8.
Now, I'm not a big fan of word games, but this game makes me like word games, and it's called Werewords. Now, let me show you a quick 1-minute overview about what Werewords is all about. Werewords is the hidden identity word game for 4 to 10 players where everything revolves around a magic word for that round. Everyone will be asking the mayor yes or no questions as to what the magic word is, and they'll be given the answers with yes or no tokens. The seer also knows the magic word and is trying to guide the team in the right direction. But watch out, because the werewolves are on the prowl, and if they can sniff out who the seer is, the werewolves will win in the end, even if the magic word is guessed. But if the magic word isn't guessed when the clock runs out, the village team can try and put an end to it by killing any of the werewolves. The game comes with a free, innovative app that you can download quickly and easily set up the different roles, change difficulties, and change settings like music and narration. Yeah, this game is just amazing. I mean, this is one of those games, it's so quick, literally it's like 5 minutes long. You will sit down and play this game, and you'll play it again and again and again and again, and an hour or two will pass and you'll be like, wow, we've been playing this for 2 hours? Like, it's like that much fun. And it's really fun to just try to guess the word, but if you're the seer, you're trying to get your team to say to get the word right, but you're trying to be sort of, a little bit hidden about it. You don't want the werewolves to pick you out. And if you're the werewolves, you're trying to figure out who the seer is, but you're also trying to like misdirect people but not be obvious about it. It's just, wow, it is a blast. It just takes this simple concept of asking yes or no questions, but puts hidden identities into this. Now, the hidden identity genre is a very popular one in board gaming. And this one's so fun because you are a secret person. No one else knows who you are. You're trying to figure out who other players are, but essentially you're just asking yes or no questions and answering it. And depending on who you are will change how you answer or even how you ask things, because even the mayor can be the werewolf too, which is interesting. So this is a no-brainer, always goes over well. The deluxe version I recommend because it plays up to 20 players and has all sorts of additional roles you can add to it. Werewords is awesome.
Number 7.
Well, I wanted to put just a 2-player card game on this list because that's one of my favorite genres of games. And there's a new one that came out last year that is an absolute classic. It's called Mandala. So let me give you a quick 1-minute overview of how this game works. Mandala is a beautiful 2-player card game that plays in 30 minutes where there's 6 different types of cards that you're going to be playing, trying to score them. The game comes with this beautiful linen playmat which helps with gameplay and for scoring. Over the course of the game, you'll be collecting certain sets of colors, and each of those cards that you score for the rest of the game will be worth a certain amount of points. For example, all the purples in my score stack at the end are going to be worth 6 points. The game has 2 different mountains. Think of them as 2 mini games that are going on at the same time, and you can play to either of these. On your turn, you're either playing a card to the center, which are the cards that will score this round, and then being able to draw up 3 cards. Or players are playing multiple cards on their side, trying to have the most influence to have the first choice of the scoring cards for that round. But each color can only be played once on the entire mountain, on our side, their side, or in the scoring center. Once the last of the 6 colors is played, it resolves. Whoever has the most cards on their side gets first choice of the scoring cards. And the cards we collect will tell us which ones will score how much at the end of the game. Yeah, this game is an instant classic. I'm going to be playing this game for decades. It's one of those games that feels timeless. It's pretty simple. You're just basically playing cards and or drawing cards, and that's it. But there's so much depth and strategy to this game that you can catch on to it pretty quick. It's easy to learn, but wow. I mean, I've played this game over 50 times and I'm still finding little strategies here and there to do. It's just a nugget of game. So if you have, if you often play 2-player games, you like card games, this is the best one I think to start with, Mandala.
Number 6.
This next one is a really fun auction game. Now, auctions is another style of game that's popular in the board game industry. And maybe you've played Connect 4 before, where you're just trying to get 4 in a row. And this game kind of takes just getting 4 in a row, that's all you're trying to do, matching it with an auction. So what you're trying to do is basically just get 4 in a row. That's it, you win. But you're gonna be auctioning off money. This game is called the Game of 49. Everyone starts with 49 bucks, and every round a new place comes up to auction, and everyone's just going around and bid. 2, 5, 7, 9, 11, 15, until everyone passes. That player that wins will spend that money and place their chip on the board, and they're trying to get 4 in a row. The trick is, about 1 out of every 5 cards is a wild, and it pays off. At the end of that round, every person gets $7 for every chip on the board. So this game is like an economic game in disguise, where you're trying to figure out how much should I pay, how many more times do I think I'll get payoffs, how much money will that make me. It actually makes you start thinking in business sense and economic sense, and it has that as disguise because the game is so easy. You're just bidding. That's all you're doing in the whole game. But there's a lot of strategy, it's a lot of fun, and it's one of those games that you will play more than once in a row for sure. And it plays all the way from 2 to 5 players. Fantastic, easy game. It always goes over well. The Game of 49.
Number 5.
Now, I wanted to put another party game on this list because often players are playing with a lot of people, and this game plays great with that. In fact, it won the Spiel des Jahres, which is the German sort of game of the year. It's the most coveted award in board gaming, and last year it won this award, basically best game in the world for families. It's called Just One. And it's called Just One because each round, one player has a card in front of them, and there's going to be a word on that card that you're trying to guess, but you can't see it. Everyone else writes just one word on their little dry erase marker board, and they're trying to get this player to guess it. The twist is, once everyone's done writing it down, the player who's trying to guess the clue closes their eyes, and everyone else shows everyone else what they've written down. If anyone's match, they get erased, which means the players coming up with the clues have got to be creative. You're trying to come up with a clue that helps them get to what the word is they're trying to guess, but you can't be too obvious because they'll get erased, they won't even see the clue. But you also don't want to go so far out that they don't know what the heck you're talking about. It is a brilliant, brilliant design. It's super simple, plays up to 7 players really well. One of the best party games out there, Just One.
Number 4.
This next one is also part of that hidden identity section of games. It's one of my favorite genres of games. This one is called Deception, Murder in Hong Kong. And even though the game does have some sort of weapons and maybe some blood and stuff like that, it's not really a gruesome game. The reason why it's on this list is because often in hidden identity games, it's all about bluffing and lying. And in this game, you don't have to do that at all. So that's why I love this game, is because players that don't really want to try to hide or pretend they're someone they're not, they don't have to. They don't have to lie. In this game, one player is the murderer, and everyone else is trying to figure it out, but one player knows who the murderer is, and they're trying to drive people there, but they can't talk. They're just giving them silent clues on a board, like the time of death, or what the weather was like, or certain things like that. And everyone is looking at the evidence cards in front of every player, and they're trying to point out, because there's basically like 2 cards that the murderer pointed at in front of them, one motive and one sort of opportunity, and they're essentially, everyone else is trying to find out, A, who the murderer is, and B, what are the 2 pieces of evidence that they did the murder with. And so everyone is looking around at the clues that are given by the silent sort of clue giver and talking out loud about who might be the murderer and why. It's just so amazing to look around and listen to all the different theories and come across. And as the game goes on, you're getting more and more clues, you're getting more and more information, and players can just sort of guess. And as with more players, there's actually an accomplice that also knows the murderer, and they're trying to sort of cover for them and things like that. It's just a brilliant, brilliant game. It's my favorite hidden identity game, and it's definitely should be in everyone's collection. Deception, Murder in Hong Kong. It also plays very good with even a small player count, which doesn't often happen in these style games, from 4 players all the way up to 12. That's Deception, Murder in Hong Kong.
Number 3.
Now this next game is called The Mind. It was one of the most popular games that came out recently over the last couple years. Let me give you a 1-minute overview of how this game works. The Mind is a cooperative game for 2 to 4 players where you're trying to get through a certain amount of levels depending on how many players are there, and you'll have a certain amount of lives in order to get that done. Each player is given 1 card for whichever level they're on, so in level 1 everyone gets 1 card, and you're trying to play these in ascending order. But the trick is, you can't talk. You're only using body language by how tense and how close you want to be to the table and how fast you want to play the card, and you're trying to figure it out with each other. But watch out, because if you play a card out of order, you'll lose one of your precious lives, and if you lose all the lives, you've lost the game. As you go up to the different levels, you'll get more cards. For instance, level 2, everyone will have 2 cards. You also can use a star, which means you can raise your hand, and if everyone does it, you can get rid of your lowest card face up. And some levels even get you a life back if you complete it. And you're trying to finish a certain amount of levels depending on the amount of players, and if you finish that, you can go into extreme mode where all the cards are played face down, and for every error you've made after you flip them up, you would lose a life. It's extreme. Yeah, I love this game because it is so easy to teach. I mean, literally it takes 1 minute to teach the game. You get going. And it's so unique. It's unlike anything else you've ever played, probably. And just that whole idea of the body language and looking at each other and crossing your arms and not looking around and trying to feel out where people are, what numbers they have. And the cool thing is you're going to be terrible at this game at first. You're not going to do really well. The game's really hard to beat. I mean, I've played this game more than 50 times. I've probably only beaten it 3 times. And the cool thing is that as you play with the same people in the same groups, you get better and better and better at just being in sync. And it's a really cool thing to experience. The mind, it's a no-brainer. Again, it fits in your pocket. You can bring it to restaurants, play while you're waiting for your food, things like that. The mind is fantastic.
Number 2.
This next one, really high on this list, another word game, which really tells you something because, as I mentioned earlier, I don't really like word games, but this one is amazing. So let me give you, this is called Codenames Duet, and I'm going to give you a 1-minute overview of how this game works. Codenames Duet is a cooperative game where you're trying to place all of these spies out on the board. Each player will be looking at a side of the code and they're trying to get their teammate to guess the ones that are in green. For example, if I wanted them to guess sword and razor on the same round, I might say sharp 2, trying to get them to guess that. If they're correct, we'll get them on the board. If they're incorrect, either the turn will end, or if they selected where one of the assassins are, the game ends immediately. To make things even more interesting, 3 of the clues that you're trying to get your partner to get, you also need to get. They overlap. And for the 3 assassins, one of them is also the assassin for the other player, one of them is a clue the other player needs to get, and one is just an innocent bystander, which would end the round. And there's also a campaign mode where after you defeat the regular base game, you can go off to other countries, which will change the difficulty and the way that you need to play. Now there's 2 versions of Codenames that I recommend. There's more out there. There's actually, so first of all, there's Codenames, which is a team versus team game where you need at least 4 players. Codenames Duet is a cooperative version of this where you can play with 2 players or more. It doesn't have to be 2. And so you can have multiple players on each side. And I like this version best because of the flexibility of that. Because you're working together, and it plays all the way down to 2 players. But with more players, it's still sort of not team versus team, but team working with the other team. And you can have more players giving clues and things like that. And the game, and this version has sort of some deductive elements to it as well. It is one of the most clever games to come up with words that link things together that you never thought could be linked before, but you find out this really clever clue and you say it and people get it, and it's just, the place erupts, and it just has some of those stand-up, amazing, memorable moments. And there's a ton of other versions of this. There's lots of licensed versions of it, like Codenames Disney and things like that. So there's lots of other fringe versions of Codenames. Duet is my favorite. If you like more team versus team stuff versus cooperative stuff, then you might try for the regular Codenames, but I still highly think this one is the best one, Codenames Duet.
Number 1.
And my number 1 game won the Spiel des Jahres, which I talked about earlier, Game of the Year back in 2004. This is a game that I've never not seen go over well. This is a game that when anyone asks me what's the best game that's come out in the modern board gaming, you know, in the last 20 or 30 years, this is the first game I say. I think everybody should have this game on their shelf. It is called Ticket to Ride. And here is a 1-minute overview of how this works. In Ticket to Ride, you're going to be building railroad routes across the entire United States. At the beginning of the game, you're going to get these secret goals that no one else will know. So you know that you need to go from Seattle to Los Angeles and also Portland to Nashville. And you might be able to make a big train that goes from LA up to Seattle, through Portland, all the way over to Nashville, and have one big long train at the end. And if you get these done at the end of the game, you'll get these points. But if you don't get them done, you'll get minus those points. So this is sort of the focus of the game. Turns are very simple. On your turn, you're either picking up cards, or you'll be playing cards. In this case, 3 pink cards for 3 pink route from city to city, in this case LA to San Francisco, as I'm starting to build my routes. And you'll be receiving points every time you place trains depending on the amount that you put down. And throughout the game, other players will be placing in certain spots. If I needed to go this way, well, I'm out of luck. Now I'm going to have to get there in a different route or go around in different directions and change plans. Whoever's best and most efficiently able to get their routes done while navigating around all the other players will be the one to win Ticket to Ride. There's just something special about this game. It's one of these games where you just play it and it's very intuitive how to play. It's fun to look at your country and play cards and build routes, and you have a secret agenda that you're trying to get. Hey, I'm trying to get from LA to New York. Nobody knows that. And I'm trying to get there. And it just has this sort of rummy style card game too. Essentially, you're grabbing sets of cards and playing sets of cards, which is really fun. And you're trying to build these routes. And the thing I love about this game is it's easy for new players to get in and play, and you can play it very casually, talking, having fun. But as you get to know the game better, if you're really competitive, you can play this game super competitive. After a while, you'll know all the routes in your head, and you'll see people start going somewhere. You'll already kind of have a good feeling where they're going, and you can start blocking them. So you can play this game very casual, but you can also play it very cutthroat. You can play it at many different levels. Plus, there's lots of expansions for this. There's maps for all over the world, Europe and Asia and Africa and France and Netherlands and you name it. There's tons of expansion maps, which basically it's the same game, but each of those has a little twist that makes you play the game differently. So it has so many things to expand upon, but even the base game, I've played, a couple weekends ago, I played tons of new games with a new group, and at the end, every single one of them said, yeah, Ticket to Ride was my favorite. I mean, it is just an absolute classic, one that everyone I think should have, and it's very readily available everywhere, and that's Ticket to Ride. Now, I hope this helped you find out about games that you hadn't yet heard of, or if you've heard about them, maybe you're dipping your toe in some new ones that you'll learn even a little bit more about. Now, I've pretty much reviewed all of these games. If you want to learn more about them, there's links below in the description of the video that will take you to a deep dive of, in detail, how all these games work, and a more full review about each of them as well. So that then hopefully you'll find which one you'll like the best to start with. This has been the Game Boy Geek, breaking down barriers, growing relationships through board games by helping you find the next one you'll love.